Hello and welcome in. It's another edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, where we are talking the biggest stories in District 4 athletics in Idaho, week in, week out. We are coming to you live on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Twitter account. You can watch a replay of this podcast anytime at those three destinations. You can also listen to this podcast at IdahoSports.com or wherever you subscribe and download to podcasts. My name is Brandon Baney. Let's bring in our Magic Valley expert, palms and glitter to boot. It's Scott Burton. What's going on, Scotty?
Hey, what's going on there, Brandon? Yeah, palms and glitter, man. I tell you what, it does. It ties into one of the stories that we've got today. But as soon as we leave here, I am headed back to the school to help manage for the next 2 days the Jerome Dance and Cheer Tiger Rumble with God knows how many teams are coming in to dance and cheer, and there's going to be glitter everywhere.
Yeah, is it going to be like in between basketball games, or is it just a standalone dance and cheer event?
Oh no, it's total standalone. So, we've been making signs and directions and organizing help because we still have school in session, and so we're going to have all these teams just kind of, landing on our campus, and I've got to be able to direct them to a place and keep them there until school's out. Meanwhile, they have competitions, solo dances starting at 1:00. And then that's going to go on through most of the night. And then cheer competitions in 85 different categories starting tomorrow. And it's going to be absolute bedlam. It's going to be nuts. And I'm just going to walk around the building like I'm just an escaped mental patient, just doing one of these things, making sure the building doesn't blow down or blow up or burn down. And people are not wandering off where they shouldn't be. And yeah. So yeah, that's why it's palm and glitter.
Yes. I was worried about, you said there's going to be glitter everywhere, getting that cleaned up, trying to get a basketball game. It made me think of last night, Scott. I was doing a girls boys doubleheader at Post Falls High School. Coeur d'Alene was playing Post Falls on IdahoSports.com. And at halftime of the first game, the girls game, they brought out basically like the little dribblers program. They called it it's called Players in Progress. And so all these little kids are out there, ages 5 to 10, they're spinning basketballs and dribbling between the legs. And what they didn't account for was it's kind of rainy and slushy up here right now. All those kids got water all over that floor, didn't wipe their feet off. And so the second half got delayed for, I don't know, 5 minutes, it felt like, while they're squeegeeing the sideline, trying to get all the water cleared up from the little dribblers. And oh man. So
I know it's funny because when those things happen, a lot of times the people that are in charge of all of that, they don't think about the floor. To me, growing up playing on basketball floors, that's kind of a sacred place. You don't put anything but indoor shoes on it, and that's it. And so we had an assembly the other day in the big gymnasium, and I'm watched this dance group march out in their cowboy boots to do a kind of a dance, and I'm like, oh no, and I'm just cringing the entire time. They were really good, by the way, but I'm just cringing, going, oh, don't damage the floor. And there's probably about me and a couple other coaches that are feeling that. Everybody else is like, oh, hey. It's like, no, you gotta see beyond that. And I don't know, maybe that's the coach mentality, the AD mentality, whatever. Don't mess with my floor. Wipe your feet.
That's right. Oh, that's funny. Okay. Well, so we'll talk about palms and glitter here coming up in just a second, Scott, but today's show is going to be heavy on girl power. I think that's probably going to be the title, because we are going to be talking girls basketball, cheerleading. We can talk about the guys later, because we've had so many young women accomplishing such great things in the Magic Valley. I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, this definitely has a lot of girl basketball in it, and cheer. And so, my goodness, let's just dive in.
Let's do it. The big story last week in the Magic Valley in girls basketball was Kimberly defeating Filer. Now, just on the surface, okay, Kimberly's pretty good, right? They've been a team that's been a player at the 3A state level the last couple of years, obviously very talented in volleyball. A lot of those athletes play basketball as well, and they get a 49-39 win on their home floor. Okay, but the bigger story is it snapped an incredible run of excellence for Filer in the SCIC in the SCIC, the Sawtooth Central Idaho Conference. Took me a second there to get all that out. That's always a mouthful. But Filer has had this 4-year run of dominance where, Scott, counting district tournament games and the regular season games, any game where they played Kimberly, Buell, or Gooding, Filer hadn't lost since February 7th of 2019. Over 50 games of a winning streak inside the SCIC finally came to an end last week.
That's unheard of. I mean, that is absolutely unheard of, and you can imagine over the course of the years how big that target on their back had grown. And if nothing else, I mean, a season can be made by just beating Filer, period. I remember when I was coaching girls basketball back in, the mid to late 2000s, 07-ish, somewhere in there. I mean, we had a 44 game home winning streak over the course of like 2.5 years. And it got snapped. And the minute that it got snapped, it was just like this big giant sigh of relief. It's like, okay, all right, let's move on to other things, because that, has been hanging over them for quite some time. And well, congratulations to Kimberly for getting it done. But man, what an impressive streak by Filer.
Yeah, and I guess I misspoke. It was only a 40-game winning streak for Filer against the SCIC. Sorry.
Move on. Next story.
You're right. This is incredible. The last team that had beaten them was Buell at the district tournament in overtime back in 2019, all the way up to now 2024. Finally, the streak ends. Taya Plu, great freshman for Kimberly, led the way with 18 points. Macy Dilly, a senior, added 16. The Magic Times, the Magic Valley Times, had a great write-up about this streak coming to an end, and everyone should go there and check it out and read it. They did the math, Scott. They counted up the days between losses to an SCIC team for Filer. It was 1,000. It was over 1,000 days, 1,804 days between losses.
Wow. That's a lot of days. That's a long time. But wow. I mean, just impressive, because how good Kimberly has been over the years in just about everything. And for Filer to own that for that long, and then the resurgence of Buell with, Jessica Montgomery taking the reins. I mean, they're formidable now. I mean, there's no doormats. Not everybody's a doormat in that conference, So yeah, there's going to be some down teams in there, perennially just not very good year after year, but still got Kimberly in there, So wow, great job.
It'll be a fun district tournament, and we'll start previewing all the district tournament brackets on next week's edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast. Scott, I started doing some research on the Magic Valley Times archives about this streak for Filer, and I pulled up a separate winning streak from earlier in this decade from Filer. The article was from February 5th, 2015, and it says, "It's over. After more than 3 years, Filer's streak of 32 straight wins against conference foes came to an end Wednesday against an opportunistic Kimberly squad, the same school against which the streak started on December 8th of 2011. So they did this previously from 2011 to 2015. They won 32 in a row, and once again, it was Kimberly ending the streak. That time it was at the district tournament back in 2015. So the fact that Filer has done this twice now in the last 15 years is just incredible.
Wow. Yeah, that's called a little bit of conference dominance over the course of going on, almost 10 years now. So, wow, impressive.
Yeah, it's a pretty remarkable accomplishment. So again, Kimberly, and Filer and Buell and Gooding are all going to duke it out at the district tournament coming up starting next week. And we'll dive deeper into that bracket on next week's edition of the Prepcast. But shout out to Kimberly for being the streak buster twice now in program history. That's pretty cool.
No kidding. No kidding.
All right, Scott. Well, just a little further down at the 1A D2 ranks, we have had this fascinating battle for the past 4 years, I feel like, between Dietrich and Richfield on the girls' basketball court. And some years Richfield has had the upper hand and gotten to state. Some years it was Dietrich with the upper hand and getting to state. And these two teams have traded blows all season long. I mean, the records are almost identical now. Dietrich is 16-3 overall. Richfield is 13-4, but the important one is they're both 3-1 in league play. They just both got done beating each other and winning at the other team's place. Dietrich went to Richfield last week and pulled out a 46-41 win. Richfield won on their home floor 46-41, and then Dietrich defended their home floor last night 44-33. So these two teams have split in the regular season. They're going to meet up in the district championship game again, Scott. And the sad story here is that these are two teams that are ranked in the top 5 of the media poll, the coaches poll. No matter what ranking you want to use, only one of them is going to get to go to state. Yeah.
We saw this happen with Camas County boys team last year, kind of the same scenario. And, that was a team that had a chance. I mean, it arguably was the best team in the state last year. And here we go again, because these two teams with Dietrich and Richfield being ranked 2 and 3, Kendrick is the number 1 team right now. That's what everybody's saying throughout the polls. But right behind him is Dietrich and Richfield. And, tied for 4th, Tri-Valley and Mackey. And both of these teams have beaten Mackey by double digits. These are two of the best teams in the state, and they could win a state title. One of them is going to sit home. And we're starting to see this kind of scenario happen a lot more now. And we're seeing it in the smaller conferences. We're seeing it in the larger conferences. You take Pocatello, Century, Preston, that gauntlet of a conference where, at any time, those 3 teams could do damage in a state tournament, but they don't get the opportunity. And here we go again. And so hopefully the IHSAA can get this fixed, because you want the best teams in the tournament, So I don't know. I feel bad for one of them, but it's Tobacco Road. It's Carolina and Duke, because they are separated by 7 miles, somewhere in there, just down the road from each other. And this has turned into quite a rivalry over the years.
Yeah, this district usually has 4 teams, right? It's Dietrich and Richfield and Hagerman and Camas County. We talked about earlier this year, Camas County was very low on numbers, basically playing with 5 or 6. We talked about in December, Scott, they had a couple of players. I think they were playing Bliss. They had a couple of players foul out. They finished the game with 3 girls and were able to hang on and win, but just the war of attrition, and Camas County had to fold their season about a month ago, which was sad to see. So now you've got just a 3-team district. It's Dietrich and Richfield and Hagerman. And so these teams are going to match up again at the district tournament. One will get to move on. Scott, I know you talked to both coaches, and let's explore each of these teams, because we're only going to get to talk about one at the state tournament. So let's give both teams their due diligence right here. I guess let's start with Dietrich. They technically will be the 1 seed at districts by virtue of winning by a larger margin against Richfield. That gives them the number 1 seed. Rick Estelle, veteran coach, and he's got a lot of good multi-sport athletes on this team.
Yeah, this is a really solid Dietrich team. And, and if you follow Dietrich basketball or anything Dietrich at all, I mean, the name Estelle just resonates in Dietrich. I mean, we all know that that Coach Rick Estelle has been battling health issues, and Brody has stepped up as well as Charlie Bingham Estelle, right, in Rick's kind of health problems. And it's one of those things to where you look at the situation in Dietrich, and let's just start with Rick. First of all, we are always, pulling for good health for him. He's just been a big story for such a long time that he's become one of those things that remind the girls that, hey, there's things that are bigger than basketball, and you just try not to make it a distraction. And the girls are kind of rallying around that. They're having a little bit more fun. They're loose, and these girls are loaded. I mean, you talk about senior leadership. I mean, you got Sage Hubert, Jessica Power, Ellie Hawkinson. I mean, these are the seniors that started on last year's state runner-up team, and the thing that I hear about this Dietrich team more than anything is that there's no drama. And if you've ever coached girls sports before, you can have the most talented team in the world, but for some reason, they let drama get in the way of something great. And I've seen it 100 times over. And so that's the one thing that I'm getting out of Dietrich right now is these girls get along. I mean, they're tons of friends. They hang out together, and they just are enjoying this run as Dietrich basketball. And, and you look at some of the other players, you've got Sage Hubert, 3-year varsity starter. She was the defensive player of the year in the Sawtooth Conference last year. So they've got these pieces coming back, and we talked about Jessica Power. She was first team all conference, usually leads their team in rebounds. And, she's kind of that pass first kind of player, but she actually had to play the point one time when all the guards fouled out. So, I mean, these are really good players. And then we talked about Hawkinson too. I mean, she comes off the bench, but she is one of their best defenders, but she's kind of a utility player. She can go post, she can go wing, she can cause matchup problems. And, then you factor in Alea Robertson, first team all conference last year. And the point guard, she's the best defender. She guards the best player on the team. And so when you look at successful basketball teams, you've got to have certain pieces in place. Number one, you've got to have a point guard. You got to have somebody that can distribute the basketball. Well, that's where Robertson comes in. You need somebody that comes off the bench and provides a spark. Well, that's where Hawkinson comes in. You need somebody that just can really lock down defensively, and Sage Hubert does that. And then you look at somebody that can really do well on the glass. Well, here comes Power. So you line up all these things for Dietrich. They've got a lot of pieces in place to make a really deep run at the state tournament if they can get there.
That's the big caveat, if they can get there. And whether it's Richfield or Dietrich, we know what they're capable of. Fans may forget, not in Dietrich, but statewide, Dietrich got to the championship game last year and lost to Council by only 10. Now they brought home the runner-up trophy. I know that has fueled these girls to get back to state and finish the job, as it were. But their biggest hurdle may be Richfield. And then it's crazy to think about that, Scott, that you would go to state and then have an easier matchup over somebody from your own district. But
and that does nothing but help these two teams. And that's why these two teams, I think, do so well at the state tournament, because they are two of the best teams in 1A D2 in the state, period. And they get to beat up on each other. And so when they get to the state tournament, they're going to run into some inferior competition. But, we've seen this play out in different conferences too, where, let's say, the Great Basin Conference in whatever sport has just been weak, top to bottom. Well, somebody is going to state in that tournament or in that conference. And then they get there and they just get blasted because the conference has been so weak. These two teams don't have that problem, which benefits them down the road.
Yeah. So Dietrich is 16-3. They've wrapped up their regular season. Scott, the only 3 losses were to Richfield by 6, Raft River by 5.
Yeah. And then Filer.
We'll talk more about Raft River next week. And then Filer. I mean, those are all teams that are going to be at state, in their respective classification, except for Richfield, possibly.
Right. And Dietrich did a really nice job of creating their schedule to play those teams, because, when you've got the talent coming back and you were state runner up last year and you've got a really solid shot to make a deep run, if you can get there, you better make sure that you play a regular season that's going to challenge you. And they did that. I mean, my goodness, they played Filer.
Yeah, 1A D2 jumping up to 3A. I mean, that's a pretty significant leap.
Yeah, isn't it? But my goodness, Filer took the game. Good for them. Good on Filer for taking that game. Yeah, that's what's going to pay off for Dietrich down the road. So we'll see where they go.
And then meanwhile, on the other side of the coin, Richfield, that lost last night to Dietrich by 11, 44-34. 44-33, snapped a 9-game winning streak for the Tigers, Scott. They also challenged themselves with a hard schedule. They are 13-4 with losses to Murtaugh, which Murtaugh is going to be a really good team. Dietrich beat Murtaugh by 2, but it took 2 overtime periods to accomplish that.
Right.
They've lost to Oakley, which is the 1A D1 runner-up from a year ago, and they lost a 5-point game to Hanson right at the start of December. They rectified that, Scott, because they
didn't they?
they played Hanson about a week later and won 46-14. So
so there's a story there, but we'll find it. But yeah, you're right. This is a battle-tested Richfield team too, and if you follow Richfield and Buck Hendren, their coach, this is a team that is not trying to outscore you. They're trying to just hold you to one less than they're going to put on the board. I mean, it's a mindset. This is a defense-oriented team, bar none. And they pride themselves on that. They try to mess things up and play good, hard defense and make your life miserable. And that's what they've made their living on for all these years under Buck Hendren.
It reminds me of my very first state tournament for IdahoSports.com was 3 years ago, 1A D2 girls. Carey made it out of the conference when they had Kylie Wood, and she was great. But Richfield got in by winning a play-in game, and they got to state. And I tell you, the defensive intensity was there. It reminded me of VCU in college basketball, 90 feet of heck, basically, where as soon as you inbound that ball, they are on you, and they're going to make walking the ball up the floor is a chore against this Richfield defense.
Well, it is. And the thing about it is, if you are going to be at the state tournament, defense travels and offense comes and goes. Granted, you need people to score the basketball. And I know we've talked about this a couple of times, but, having been at the state tournament a billion times, broadcaster, coach, player, I'll tell you what, there is something to be said about the formula that wins state titles. And granted, there's always going to be an exception. There's going to be an outstanding player that shows up and just kind of, a curve buster. But the things that make a state tournament team successful is, number one, they play defense, because that will travel. It's still the same court. You're still playing. Number two, you score in the paint. You find a way to get to the rim. Those are the things. It's not going to be the flash and the flare of the three-point shot that's going to come and go. It's going to be a lot of what Coach Hendren's doing is just defensive philosophy oriented, because he knows that's going to travel. And that's the success of teams at the state tournament. And you have to build your team that way.
And they are built similarly to Dietrich. All those players you highlighted for Dietrich, great steady point guard in Alea Robertson. They've got that in Casey Hendren. They've got JC Telford in the backcourt who can alleviate some of the scoring. You talk about Jessica Power inside for Dietrich. Richfield says, well, we've got Shelby Jones at 5'10", and she can hold her own down low.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now you factor in the defense. I mean, it starts with the point guard, obviously, and that's where Casey comes in. I mean, she's averaging 15 points a game. And, she really is a true point guard, but she's also one of those that can D you up as well. I mean, she's averaging almost 7 steals a game, which has got to be near the top in the state. And it does start with Casey. And you're right. You brought up Shelby Jones. I mean, she's averaging 10 and 7. I mean, she's a double threat every time you step on the floor. And so if they can figure out to get the ball to Shelby, she can get the ball to the rim, and then they just tighten up the defense. They get Malia Kent coming in as a sophomore. She's averaging 7, but she takes the pressure off of Casey a little bit. And they've got the pieces there too. That's why these two teams are ranked 2 and 3 in the state. And that's why if they were both going to state, there's a realistic chance they could play each other for a title. That ain't going to happen, unfortunately.
That is a definite possibility for sure. And so for Richfield and Dietrich obviously both have very accomplished volleyball programs as well, right? You'll recognize a lot of these names from the volleyball season. I know one thing that has hurt Richfield a little bit is their depth.
Yeah.
Girls that were multi-sport athletes as freshmen and sophomores have now decided to focus on club volleyball in the winter instead of basketball. And so I know Coach Hendren has lost, a couple of players that would have helped and contributed in that way, but that creates opportunities for somebody else. And despite that, they've managed to find a way to overcome that hurdle and keep on rolling.
Oh, I don't get it. I don't. I mean, first of all, specializing is stupid. Secondly, if you are really looking to go to the next level, then the majority of these college coaches, no matter whether it's D1, D2, JUCO, whatever, it doesn't matter. They want athletes. And you're at a 1A school. I mean, come on. You are needed in all of these programs. Okay, so step it up and be a part of your school and all these programs that need you. You can't disappear into the crowd like you're a 5A school where they've got all the numbers. They don't. I mean, doing that just absolutely are program destroyers. And I hate to see it. I really do.
Yep, it's tough for sure. So it'll be really interesting to see how this shakes out. Last year, Dietrich had the upper hand in every single matchup against Richfield, twice in the regular season, twice at districts, because last year it was a 4-team tournament. So Richfield had to win the second place game and then challenge back. And so they snapped a little mini slide against Dietrich with that win earlier in the regular season. But, we'll see what happens. These two are going to duke it out at districts next week. Can't wait to see the matchup. Yeah.
And this rivalry is, it's a friendly rivalry. I mean, these girls know each other. They play summer ball together. And, and for Coach Hendren, he's got 2 daughters on the team. And so this particular group of girls, they're like at the barbecues, they're at the parties, they're at his house. It's like they're his kids because he's got 2 daughters mixed in with it. So it's a little different vibe there, but they also understand too that, they are really good friends with these Dietrich girls too. They work together at, the Shoshone pool where a lot of them are employed. They play club basketball together. They show animals at the fair together. And even Coach Rick Estelle called up Casey to play with Dietrich in a summer tournament last year, and she went and she had a blast, and they just get along so well. So it's a friendly rivalry, but it's a rivalry nonetheless.
It's a fun one for sure. Gary Jones is in the chat, one of our great broadcasters from IdahoSports.com. He says, offense sells tickets, defense wins championships. Wise words.
Very true. Very true, Gary. Very true.
Well, somebody who didn't have offense or defense when they needed it, Scott, was the Dallas Cowboys in that first round playoff loss to the Green Bay Packers.
How about that? Yeah, boy, what a choke job that was.
Yeah. And we bring up the Dallas Cowboys because that'll tie into our next story, which is in the world of cheerleading. So last year, the Highland Rams from Pocatello went to the national cheerleading competition, Scott, and came away with the title. They won the national cheerleading championship, which was a really cool accomplishment. Now this year, it's another Idaho program, a little closer to home for you, Scott, right in your backyard. The Jerome High School cheerleaders qualify for nationals at AT&T Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys, and they get to go down there for the trip of a lifetime. This was a really cool story.
Yeah, I mean, this is something, if you're familiar with Jerome and you come to our games or whatever the case is, I tell you what, there's something that we do as well, if not better than everybody else. And that is, we may not be able to put like the state championship caliber teams on the floor every year. But what we can provide you is an incredible atmosphere. And it begins with our cheerleaders, our band, our dance team, everything. But the cheerleaders are at the center of it. And if you ever come to Jerome and you experience a game, you're going to see that. And you're going to walk away going, that was a really cool vibe. They just have fun, and it's a production and whatever. And that's what we do. cheer is integral in this. And so, I work closely with the cheerleaders because I'm the PA guy, I'm the AD, I'm organizing it all, writing their halftime intros and all this kind of stuff. And so I work closely with the head coach, Kira Capps, and just a little bit about her. I mean, this is a cheer coach for Jerome. It just comes from cheer. I mean, she's in her 10th season here, but she's been in the business for over 25 years, from junior high to college. She spent 9 years as a staff member of the National Cheerleading Association, the NCAA, where they just came from. So she's been part of that. She coached in Utah for a little while. So we've got a coach that's been around the block as far as cheer goes, and she knows her stuff. She knows the nationals, and she's really doing a great job with these girls that we have, because you think of cheer sometimes, and trust me, I have learned a lot about cheer over the last several years, is that you just don't think of it as like grinding. You don't think of it as just a grueling season, but these kids go year round. Basically, they stop in March, I think, and pick it back up in April. I mean, they get a month off or whatever it is, and they're at all the games. They travel sometimes. They're at competitions, and so I mean, it is an intense thing, and it's run very intensely at Jerome. It's a big deal, and so for them to go to nationals, qualify down there, and come away with a 5th place finish nationally, hey, not too bad.
That's big league. And Jerome was one of 3 teams from Idaho to even qualify for nationals.
Yeah. And they finished higher than any other Idaho team there. But they had a blast. And the cool thing that I know that our coaches, Kira and Sarah, like to do is get them outside of their boundaries. They take them to Disneyland every year, and they cheer down there in the parade, and they go to nationals. They want them outside of their boundaries just to see the world. And I really like that about what our cheer coaches are doing for them. And so they came back from Dallas with all these stories, meeting all these people, touring the locker rooms, getting down on the field, interacting with the cheerleaders from the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, all of it. Cool experience.
For sure. We've got some pictures and a pretty cool video to share here, Scott. So I'll start with, these are the coaches for Jerome High School. Right there.
Yeah. Yep. That's Kira and Sarah. Sarah on the left, Kira on the right. And they just really put a lot of time and effort into our programs. And they do a great job of making our sporting events better, our spirit better. So, I really enjoy working with them because they really do great things for our school.
That's awesome. Here's Jerome at the NCAA High School Nationals, the National Cheerleading Association. It's awesome to be in front of the banner. That's just got to be a surreal moment. It's cool.
Oh yeah. And doing their routines down on the turf. I saw some of those pictures and heard some of the stories when the kids came back, and very cool.
Yeah. So you mentioned AT&T Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys. Here they are on the turf after it was all wrapped up. They've got a football. They've got their medals.
Yep.
And here's them actually, posing.
Doing whatever they do.
What a cool deal. That is so exciting. And before they even got down there, Scott, the team got a special message that I'm sure pumped them up and got them fired up to go down there and compete. We're going to play that.
Hi, Jerome High School Cheer. I'm Jessica.
And I'm Camille.
And we're with the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, and we just want to wish you all the best of luck as you compete in your competition this weekend.
And I just wanted to give a special shout out to Coach Kira Capps. Congratulations on leading your team this season and bringing them this far to competition.
We're so excited for you all. Have so much fun and best of luck.
Bye.
How cool is that, Scott?
That's way cool. That is super cool. I need to work on one that says, "Hey, Brandon and Scott,
right?
Did a great job on your podcast."
Yeah.
see what I can do. But yeah, that's really cool. And, and for those kids to see that, I mean, they're stepping into the big time for them. I mean, they're high school kids and they get that. That's something they're not going to forget.
Yep. It's a really cool deal. Gary did ask in the chat, does the Jerome athletic director get to go to nationals with the cheerleaders?
Well, if the Jerome athletic director had a clear plate, he could do whatever he wants, but I haven't seen a clean plate for 4 years. So I'm not even sure the answer to that, Gary. I suppose I could, and then the building had burned down after I left, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough gig being the AD for sure. We're going to talk about all the craziness that's gone on with your schedule in our Scott's Thoughts segment. It'll be right after this break. We're going to hear from our sponsors at No Vape Idaho, and then we'll be back here on the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
It's not like I'm doing drugs.
Nicotine can negatively impact the developing brain and make it more susceptible to other addictive substances. Students that vape are 3 times more likely to start smoking weed. And kids who share vapes can unknowingly inhale other drugs like THC, meth, or fentanyl, causing permanent lung damage, overdose, and even death. Be smart, don't start.
This is the Magic Valley Prepcast presented by No Vape Idaho. Be smart, don't start. Scott, you're not going to be a national championship competing cheerleader by vaping.
Mm-hmm. No, I will throw this little nugget out there too. When I was in high school, my mom was the cheerleader advisor for our high school. So all through my high school years, cheerleaders were always practicing, running around our house, doing their thing, whatever cheerleaders do, as I was just kind of tooling off to football practice or whatever the case was. So yeah, it's not, I've kind of been around it a little bit, but not to the extent that these coaches and kids are really getting after it. But I'm no stranger.
Yeah, I've got a cousin that lives back in Montana, and she is the cheer and dance coach at her high school, her alma mater. She coaches cheer and dance, and then her husband was a big time athlete, played football for Montana State University. And so they had a son and a daughter, and the daughter, they found out, she's pretty tall, got pretty good at sports. And so they had to come to a compromise because mom wanted her to be a cheerleader. And then dad was like, yes, but she's also going to play sports. And so they kind of came to an agreement where the two, whatever sport she was doing, softball, volleyball, basketball, they would share her. And then she would also still be part of cheer and dance. So.
That's a tough one. I mean, I've got 3 daughters. I've got 2 of them that are kind of in elementary school, grade school, and I am the sports guy. There's going to be some interesting conversations coming up if they want to. Hey, Daddy, I want to be a cheerleader. I want to be a dancer. Okay, honey. But first, go shoot 100 free throws. So I don't know what a juggling act that is going to be. I'm not looking forward to that.
Yeah. One last thing on cheerleading. There was a documentary that came out on Netflix a couple of years ago called Cheer. It was about a junior college in Texas that is like the dominant cheerleading program on the JUCO scene. And I watched it with my wife. She's the one who suggested it, of course. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I'll watch it. Sure. I was fascinated by it because the coach, it was really a lot of the coach and how she structures practices and runs her program and how does she discipline athletes when they break the rules. And so I love watching great coaches, and to watch her, Coach Monica was her name. It was fascinating. So if you're looking for something fun to watch, it's on Netflix. It's called Cheer. So.
Wow. Okay. Cheer. I will check it out, seeing how that seems to be a predominant theme this week.
That's right. Okay. So this is normally the part of the show where we would dive into Scott's thoughts, but Scott, as you alluded to, your calendar has been plumb full. You've had makeup games for basketball from cancellations over the previous 2 weeks. You've got this huge dance competition that you've got going on later today and tomorrow. And so, formulating your thoughts this week got put on the back burner, but that's okay. That happens sometimes.
It did. Sometimes life gets in the way. Sometimes the job gets in the way, but we're not abandoning the topic, and we're certainly not abandoning the segment because it has gotten such great reaction and traction. And I mean, it's been a really cool thing to do. So, and that leads into it too. And if I feel that I'm not quite ready, or it's like one of those things where I don't want to put a bad something out there, right? Because it's gotten so much traction. I want to make sure it's good. And plus, last week was Snowmageddon, and now we're scheduling everything because we're coming down to the end of these winter seasons, and those games that got snowed out, they've got to get made up. And so we are just cramming them in. And so this week has been just hectic with every night something going on. And so sometimes, that happens, and we'll pick it up again.
Yep. As a reminder, the topic that we're going to address the next time we have Scott's Thoughts is, how do you say the 3 simple words, I was wrong? We shudder to say it in society today, politics, leadership, whatever you want to say, people just double down instead of admitting, hey, you know what? I got it wrong. And the whole idea came up because I had gotten wrong this point total for Idaho's career all-time points scored leader in boys basketball. Case Wynot of Lapway, by the way, broke that record last night on IdahoSports.com. If you haven't seen it yet, we've got the clip on all of our social media. You can also go back and watch the game as well at IdahoSports.com. It was a really cool moment. But initially, I had the wrong point total from the previous record holder. Found out that wasn't right. So instead of just making the change and not saying anything, I owned up to it. I say, hey, look, I got it wrong, and I'll do better next time. So,
and I think it's a lost trait that people do not practice anymore, and I'm going to have a lot to say about it because it is something that is disappearing. And you see everybody, like you said, doubling down on their it doesn't matter what the facts say anymore. You just say no, and all the facts say yes, and you just say, no, I didn't do it, whatever. People have got no conscience anymore. So we'll see. But yeah, it's a huge problem.
Yeah, and it's going to be a great topic when we get to it. In the meantime, if you want to hear all of Scott's previous thoughts, we've got them on a playlist. Just go to the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, and we have got a Scott's Thoughts playlist, I think 13. We've done 13 of them so far, and you can just check them all out there. If there's a topic that interests you or you want to hear all of them, they're all great, and so they're all right there for you on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, and a nice playlist for you to watch them all. So
yeah, absolutely. Love it. Love doing this.
Yep. All right, Scott, I know you got to get back to it. So we will let you go back and start your job of hall monitor, making sure people are where they're supposed to be and not wandering. It's going to be a fun time.
Yep, exactly right. Directing bus, directing traffic, sweeping up glitter. It's just a day. It's just a normal day.
Yep, for sure. And so we'll be back next week to break down all of the girls basketball district tournament action. But until then, enjoy what's left of the regular season for girls hoops. Obviously got some boys hoops and wrestling still taking place as well. And we'll see you next time for another edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast. For Scott Burton, I'm Brandon Baney. Thanks for tuning in on IdahoSports.com.